Hello and welcome to my second karting video of the season from the Club100 SP60 Championship. It's taken me quite a while to make this video because basically I didn't want to. I really struggled with the conditions that we had, made some really silly mistakes as well, and I really couldn't face watching the video back or doing anything with it. The race was held in May, which I believe was the wettest May on record or something like that, and it basically rained all month, and this day wasn't really any different. I have driven in wet or mixed conditions previously with Club100 at Butmore Park and Wright House, but Whilton Mill seems to be a bit of an anomaly. It has a very low grip surface, if I'm honest. In my opinion, probably needs resurfacing, which made it even more challenging. I've said before in previous videos, with Club100 we race with slicks on the karts in all conditions. We never ever change tyres. Now slicks do work in the wet if there isn't an excessive amount of standing water, because with no grooves they obviously don't clear water, so standing water is really, really bad. But for the tyres to work, you do need to generate a certain amount of heat in them so that they grip. I think because of the problems I had with the conditions, I never really managed to generate enough tyre temperature when the track was wet, which then meant I lacked confidence, because every time I tried to turn into a corner, you just understeer. The tyres do eventually grip up, but it's really quite alarming if you're not used to it. And I really think I got into a bit of a vicious cycle of lack of grip leading to lack of confidence, which then means you don't want to push, and then you don't generate heat in the tyres, which leads to a lack of grip, which leads to a lack of confidence. So, you know, I think that really contributed to the difficulties that I had. I mean, the conditions were variable throughout the day, so practice was probably the wettest it was. It was drier in race 1, and then it rained again when it came to race 2. So we're now in the qualifying part of practice. I'm just coming around the final corner, and I noticed as I came under the start line gantry that there was 4 seconds left in the session, which means I could get one more lap in, so I decided to push as hard as I could. You can obviously see from the water on the lens of the camera that it's quite damp. Coming up to Christmas Corner, and just to give you an idea of how damp it is, I locked the brakes under braking the corner and spin backwards, and even with the rear wheels locked I just slide on into the mud. So race 1 conditions had improved from practice, and you probably can see there's a few dry patches in the track. Kind of made an okay start, and was quite fortunate. I managed to avoid the carnage in the first corner, and there were a few more spins throughout the first lap, which, aside from a little bit of contact here, I did a reasonable job of avoiding what was going on, although, you know, clearly not as fast or as confident as some of the other guys. But, you know, one of my primary objectives was don't make any stupid mistakes, because given the conditions, other people will push too hard and go off the track. And once you go off the track, if you end up on the grass, you are not allowed to restart the kart from the grass. So as you saw the guy we were just going past, you have to get out of the kart, push the kart back onto the tarmac, and then jump back in and then resume from there. Now, that's easier said than done when the grass is incredibly slippy. Karts aren't the easiest things to manhandle around, particularly when you're standing on very soggy mud. And the second thing is, obviously, all the time that the kart is stuck on the grass and you're manhandling it back on the tarmac, you're losing tyre temperature. So it's really quite a heavy penalty. And certainly the race here, you're likely to have mud on your tyres, which means points, probably for a good lap and a half, 2 laps after having gone off the track, you've got even less grip than there is anyway. And there isn't a lot. So, you know, my pace really isn't great. I'm lacking in confidence from practice. I pick up a track limits warning from lap 1 for running wide at the final corner. More of this in a minute. But although I'm struggling, and quite clearly the fast guys are just quite easily driving away from me, I'm at least managing to keep the car pointing in the right direction and not making massive mistakes that mean I've spun out. Some of the people that were caught up in the carnage on the first lap have started to come past me, but again, I'm not overly worried. At this point, it's much more about gaining a bit more confidence that I'd completely lost during practice and qualifying, and just keeping it going, because I was sure that other people would make mistakes as the race went on, and clearly hoping that, you know, if the conditions stayed as they were, the track would dry up, which would at least make it a bit easier for me to deal with the conditions. You can see both the guys in front of me have gone wide at the final corner, both track limit warnings. I'm just about to come under the digi flag, number 9, that's me. I've received a track limit warning for my excursion on lap 1, and this will become more of a factor shortly. As I said, the pace isn't great really. I'm beginning, you know, I was going quicker lap on lap, but you know, no great shakes at all. So we skip forward a bit now to lap 5. You see conditions have not changed that much. There are some more dry patches coming on the track. Just coming down to the hairpin, coming out the hairpin, heading towards the cut through, and there's a red flag at the marshal post, so obviously we all slow down. At this point I'm kind of looking around, you know, trying to work out, well, why is there a red flag? And also obviously, you know, making sure no one's been hurt. I mean, your normal reaction to a red flag is that somebody's had a bad accident and they need, you know, some kind of attention, which clearly nobody wants to see. You don't want anyone to get hurt. So, you know, I was kind of looking around trying to see, you know, what happened. Was there, you know, some obstruction on the track, or like I say, somebody had a particularly bad accident and they needed attention. Coming through to the start-finish line, I've not seen anything. I'm getting quite confused at this point as to why we've stopped. So we continue around the rest of the lap. The reason why we were stopped is so that JV, the CEO of Club 100, could basically deliver a bollocking to the entire field for principally ignoring track limits out of the final corner. Apparently the race radios, which obviously are critical to our safety and to the ability of the marshals and the spotters and what have you to run the meeting, was completely jammed with reports of people having gone over track limits at the final corner. Now, you know, there was a bit of discussion between the drivers after this. In our defence, it was quite difficult, particularly near the apex of the final corner was very damp, which meant if you tried to get close to the apex, you basically shot straight across onto the concrete apron and basically breached track limits. But, you know, it's the same for everyone, and also those radios are critical for us being safe. So there's really no complaints. So after we were all stopped and summoned to the front of the grid for a dressing down, the race was restarted, but with reduced time. I don't have any footage of the second part of race 1 because basically I'm an idiot. My result was okay, but probably would have been better if the first running had completed. So, race 2. Having started to dry, the rain came back for race 2, which is probably what I didn't need. To cut a long story short, I really struggled again with the conditions, the lack of grip. My result was really determined by a couple of laps where I span twice. The first one, which is on this video clip, it's a bit weird. I think I just kind of spooked myself thinking I was going to hit the tyre wall and the marshal behind it or near it. Probably what I should have done is just stayed with it. I might have grazed the tyre wall, but it probably would have ended up staying facing in the right direction. Instead, I think I spooked myself, jumped on the brakes, locked the rear wheels, and smashed into the tyre wall, and then had to kind of manhandle the cart round to the correct direction. To add insult to injury, I then got a penalty for cone abuse for hitting the tyres whilst actually going backwards with my brakes locked. I guess I can kind of laugh about it now, but I was pretty pissed off with myself at the time, I have to admit. So all in all, I really didn't deal with the conditions well at all. I struggled pretty much from the very first lap we turned in practice all the way through. And after having felt quite positive after round 1 at Clay Pigeon, where, although I was towards the back of the field, I improved throughout the day, had some good battles with people, towards my end of the field, and generally felt that after the winter that I was feeling confident driving the kart, could definitely see how I could move forward. Coming away from Whilton Mill, I just basically felt frustrated. Never have really got to grips with the conditions at any point. Obviously that reflected in the result. I mean, when I saw it was wet, I just said to myself, try to avoid making mistakes. And here comes a mistake. Spin, bang, penalty for hitting tyres. And I just lose it. Absolute barrel load of time through having to pull the cart about. Really, really frustrating. Maybe if race 1 had run to completion, the first part of race 1 had run to completion, I may have had a decent finish. But really race 2 was completely decided by the mistake you've just seen and then the one that followed it. Really frustrating. But nothing I can do about it now. This weekend we go to Lyd, and it certainly looks like it should be dry. I know Lyd has its own ecosystem, but the weather in June thus far has been pretty much universally dry, so I think it's going to be dry at Lyd, which will be much better. So fingers crossed that I see an improvement and generally come away from Lyd feeling much happier than I did after Whilton Mill.